Good morning, everybody, and welcome from sunny Sydney in Australia. It is fantastic to see you all here today for our Yes Zone LinkedIn Live. And we have got a wonderful interview with you today. So just while everybody's dialing in, because I know we've got a lot of registrations today, it is a fantastic topic and one that many people are very excited to be hearing a lot more about. If you can please put into the comments exactly where you're dialing in from or where you're listening from today. That would be brilliant, because then we can also promote you on the bottom of our screen live right across the LinkedIn platform. So please pop into comments where you are, so we know you're on board with us this morning as well, and can join in this fantastic conversation. And as you're doing that, we can highlight them on our screen. All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Rachel Bourke. I am the founder and head trainer at SalesSPACE. At SalesSPACE, we teach the best sales system for experts or businesses who sell high value product or services. In fact, we are brilliant at teaching people to sell who actually feel like sales is a little bit difficult for them. So we help a lot of people overcome the fears and obstacles that stop them from making a lot of money in their business. And we teach you how to master the art of selling without ever sounding salesy. So this morning we have a wonderful expert on for me to interview, and that is Scott Eathorne. Scott is renowned as the go-to expert in the media space. So he is the owner and publicity manager at Quikmark Media, a highly sought after PR consultancy. He has been the head of many targeted publicity campaigns to build a national media profile with clients in the fields of leadership, HR, small business, finance, and book publishing, just to name a few. So who better to speak to today about getting our businesses or your thought leadership into the mainstream media than Scott Eathorne. Welcome, Scott. It is fantastic to have you here.
Hey, Rachel. Nice to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's great. You are a hard man to pin down because you are so flat out all the time. So with 2 minutes to spare, Scott jumps into StreamYard. I'm just like sweating. Where is this guy? So I'm very, very happy to see you today, and it is fantastic to be able to speak with you. And we had a conversation last week in preparation for today, and I can't wait to be asking you these topics and these questions that I know so many people are keen to hear the answers of. And I know how hard it was to pin you down, so I feel like others are going to feel exactly the same way. So hearing you speak live on LinkedIn today is going to be really beneficial to many, many people. So, Scott, it is good to have you here. And you said the other day you haven't done many interviews on LinkedIn Live or many interviews yourself. You're too busy publicising other people. Is that right?
Well, it's funny because I love publicising authors and thought leaders, but not so much myself. And I guess I've just prioritized, getting people out there rather than emptying my own business. So I thought, well, you've asked me. I love our working relationship. So I thought now's the right time to get back out there.
Yeah, that is super. I'm really, really glad to have you here today. So as I said, people, as you're listening today, please pop your name into the comments and where you are dialing in from, so we can also publicize and promote you on our LinkedIn Live this morning as well. Okay then, so Scott, big topic. We've got, we normally put aside 45 minutes for our LinkedIn Live. So let's get straight into it with our first question today. All right, so Adrian is in, so we're just going to highlight a few people here. So hi there, Adrian. Fantastic to see you on our live today. Okay, so we would all, as you can see, the question has come up across the bottom of the screen. We would all love to know your background. How did you end up being the go-to person for experts, thought leaders, and businesses wanting a profile in mainstream media? How did this happen?
Yeah, well, I guess interestingly enough, I've always sort of had a passion for publishing. So my background, I'm from WA originally, and I worked with a small publisher over there and moved to Melbourne where I worked with John Wiley and Sons. And that was a fantastic learning experience in terms of, how the media works with business experts and authors. And what I found through the experience there was just, I feel like there was an opportunity in the market to help people that, once they'd had the book come out, what next? How do I keep my reputation and my profile building in the media? And so it kind of felt like a bit of an organic step to start Quikmark. to help those people, because I was constantly asked, which agencies can I go after who offer this sorts of media coverage? And not a lot do. And when they do, they were incredibly unaffordable. So I felt like it was the right opportunity to work with a smaller group of people that we could help sort of leverage their profile from the book or from anything else they might be promoting, and to sort of get their thought leadership out there, because having a book is just one of those fantastic opportunities that really does escalate quickly your thought leadership in the media, and it gives media a really good understanding about what your niche might be or your position in the market. So that's a long-worded answer of essentially working with a publisher in-house, and then seemed like the right time to go alone, and that was 2009, and we're almost end of 2022. So it's been a while, but I love it. I've still got the same passion as I did when I first started out. Maybe there's nothing more exciting than seeing a client get a great win in the media, and it's something that I really enjoyed being the sort of connector, if you like, for these thought leaders to the media, help them build relationships and their expertise more widely known.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you've done an incredible job, because you have got quite the reputation, and also you filled a beautiful gap, because as you said before, it was incredibly expensive, and you're actually offering a service now that is super affordable for people who thought leaders and small businesses who have got a really great topic to have in the media, and you've obviously done a great job at that. So that is good. Okay, so thank you for the background. Okay, next question is, I always love to ask this question. What do you see are your greatest strengths?
Look, I guess it comes back down to the reason why I do what I do, is that I love connecting people. There's nothing more exciting to me than a media contact reaches out about something they're interested in doing, and I've got the exact person that they need to do. And in my role, that happens all the time. And it's quite common for me, for example, to even have clients that I worked with 2 or 3 years ago that could be perfect for a story that I've been approached about, and I'll happily connect them, because I feel like my real value that I offer media is that I can help them connected to the right people. I'd say, connection is sort of first and foremost thing. I'd say another angle about it is that a lot of people aren't necessarily great about conveying to media what their immediate value is, because sometimes people get a bit too caught up in, what their sort of business offerings are, and not thinking about it from a sort of media perspective, who are all about how do you and what your business does offer readership or the viewership or whoever it is that you're going after. But I think my value is just finding this common point between a business or author and the media, and finding a way to make that more digestible to them. Because as soon as you can find a way to tell media, what it is that the author or business has that's a bit special, they're kind of usually on board with it a lot more sooner. And sometimes I think, when people go out alone, they don't know how to word that, because, media industry operates differently than what other things do in terms of business engagement and whatnot. So I think that having someone out there who knows the lingo and the jargon and the time frame and the approach and how media works and when not to piss them off and when to follow up, it's just such a gamble. So I think that making that simplified is another one. And essentially good communication, because, if I'm not a good communicator with media and with clients, everything's going to fall by the wayside. I think it's just really about making that an easy process for both perspectives, so people get real value out of the work that I do.
Yeah, so making sure people can articulate their uniqueness. So, you and I were talking the other day about how important the work we do is for authors and for thought leaders and small businesses who want to be in the media. Just being able to articulate what makes them unique, and being able to do that for you, so you can articulate it to the journos and the media houses that you speak to. That is so important as well. And it's not always everybody's greatest strength. It's one of your strengths, but it's very hard for a lot of people to do that. And as you're putting your name into the comment, if you have written a book, with just one sec, Scott, if you're listening today and you've written a book, and you please put it into your comment put it in with your comment in our comments today, so we can put that up onto the screen as well to help promote you and your book and what your uniqueness is. That I can see some of our clients are listening today and they're doing just that. So well done, people. Okay, let's have a look at the next question, please. So Scott, what are the 3 critical actions to ensure an expert business or book gains the right attention?
I think it's a tie into what you're just saying, is that it's really about understanding the point of difference. So sometimes if a client doesn't have a clear view on what the point of difference is, that's something we've got to go to workshop. Because I think some people are often afraid of having an opinion, which often formulates part of what your unique point of difference is. So it's really about understanding that. Second one would probably be delivering to media when they actually request it, because how I sort of tend to work is that when I get various media requests, I build in a bit of a buffer so that our communication process is pretty seamless. If I get let down from the client perspective and they don't, get back to me regarding an interview, or if a comment request or an article or whatever it is, that's detrimental, because it means that I can't be the effective communicator that I need to be to get these results. The third thing will probably be just that making sure that your sort of point of difference and message is clear. And that's when, if you have something like a white paper or a book, it's really valuable because it shows media really quickly about how they can work with you and what your point of difference is and what value that you offer. I think it's just really about those three key things.
Yeah, that's the three fantastic tips. I love it. Okay, then. So our next question is, what are the key differences between each different media outlet?
So the biggest thing is,
I suppose, what are the different media outlets that you work across, and then what are the differences between them?
Look, I mean, I work across every sort of media platform, whether it's, print media, online, radio, TV, podcasts. It's really just about considering lead time first and foremost, because, what's going to be topical and of interest to a TV producer who works much more in media is going to be a lot different to what a magazine editor is putting together 6 to 12 weeks in advance. Yeah. So I think, it's really just about considering those lead times, particularly if you want a sort of a cross-platform approach. I mean, some people only want podcasts, some people only want to be in magazines. It just depends on what it is. With online, when you're sort of thinking about crafting your message, sure, it's really all about clickability, shareability. Even, for example, I was speaking with one of the editors of the Financial Review, and they were going back through the last 12 months of stories from various sections, and they were seeing, which were resonating the most. And often those were listicles, as simplistic as they can seem at times, still seem to get great engagement. Just looking about maybe then how you would tailor your message to work on those online platforms. For radio and TV, it's about, okay, well, how does my message translate into a soundbite? If you're on radio and you're giving a comment on a breaking news story, you might only get up 20 to 30 seconds of airtime. Or if they want to do an interview with you, generally it's only like 3 to 5 minutes total. It's just about thinking then about how your message can work amongst different platforms and tailoring it accordingly.
Yeah, you said a couple of words there that I think we should get definitions for, just in case people aren't across them. Listicles and also sound bites. Explain those.
So a listicle could be, five ways to engage your team in 2023. Something like that, where it's practical, takeaway advice that someone who is your desired readership could take away and implement in their team. So it's less about having an opinion on a topic and more about the practical applicability of what it is that you're trying to say. And sound bites is essentially, if you're ever listening to like AM radio, and you might hear someone on, at the moment, a lot of politics in Victoria. So it'd be about, what are the sort of 20 or 30 second grab that if someone asks you a key question that you could give about a particular topic. So it's almost like a different way of looking at an elevator pitch, but just tailored to a specific thing. So if you were on Sky News and a host said to you, what is something that we can learn about leadership next year, or what are the learnings from COVID that we can apply? It's thinking about that in a really succinct way that makes sense for a short time period that you're given. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, great points. Considering those differences, how do we know which format to target? Like, as a business owner or a thought leader or an author, which you said some people only want podcasts, some people want to be on TV, some people want radio, some people want magazines, etc. How do we know which one is best for our own business or our own thought leadership?
So I think, to be honest, it depends on where you sit in the media food chain. And by that I mean, how established are you already? Because if you're someone who's already sought after, then you can kind of take your pick about which media platforms you might want to approach based upon where you feel like your audience is most engaged. If you're a new author, for example, and you're trying to build a profile for yourself and your book simultaneously, I would say go multi-platform, because you can create such a greater feeling of awareness if you do that, rather than saying, look, I only want to be online on the AFR, for example. Where there's a bunch of different business publications you can get reviews in, you can write in, you can offer expert commentary, you can be online, you can be giving radio interviews at the same sort of thing. The way that I sort of approach it is, particularly if it is a book, it's just looking about that as a tool in itself. What are the key messages and how they can apply to different media platforms, and really going for it. It does depend too, I guess, if you're self-publishing or going through a traditional publisher. The difference being that, and this is book specifically, but if you're going through a traditional publisher, it's usually anchored around a release date. So there's sort of a sense of urgency across media platform to get different kinds of media coverage out there to support the sales side of things. When it's self-published, often it can be sort of more of a business engagement tool, or to sort of use the media coverage to really get your business and your messages out there tied into your book release. But it just really depends on where you feel like your audience sits and how you can utilize your thought leadership, whether it's through a book or something you've written, to escalate that in the media.
Yeah, so that comes back to what we talk to our clients a lot about, which is targeting. And when you understand exactly who your audience is, or audiences are, where they are, what they listen to, that sort of work is so important before they come to you, I suppose. So that just makes it even easier for them to help you help them if they have that level of clarity around their target audiences, which is...
Absolutely. And anything that I'd add to that is that sometimes I find, people, which is great, have a very specific idea about where they want to be placed and what media they do and don't want to deal with. But sometimes it can surprise people, because I had an instant a couple of years ago where an author didn't want morning TV. Said, none of my clients ever watch it. And we had Sunrise interested. Anyway, I ended up convincing them to do the segment with Sunrise. And sure enough, a couple of CEOs that they knew watched it, because often they might have the TV on in the background when they're getting ready, or they might even have it on at work when when the teams are getting ready. And even if they didn't, like, the sort of social media opportunities around having a national TV interview are huge. So whenever we get interest that's tailored around their message, because you wouldn't just do TV, it was talking about what are the top names for next year. But if it was something tied into your message, then I think absolutely take it on, because the power of TV still exists as a great medium.
Oh, unbelievably so. I tell you what, if someone said, Rachel, do you want to be on morning TV? I would be there with bells on. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right, wonderful. And thank you for putting your names up there into the comments, people. Please keep doing that. And good to see you there, Trav, Georgie, Amanda, Adrian as well. Now, if you have questions as you're listening to Scott and I this morning, please put your questions into the comments straight away as well, because we can bring them up onto the screen amongst these questions that I am wanting to, that I've got prepared to ask Scott as well. Okay, so when is a good time to do PR? Is there the perfect time to do PR? When is it good?
But I don't think so. And I get asked this question a lot, whether it's a specific time. I mean, obviously there's obvious parallels. Like if you're in a book for mums, you might have it around Mother's Day. If you have a course coming up in September, you need leads in, you're going to do it in the lead up to that. I always just think anchor it around when the coverage coming out is going to be of most valuable to you. And that really just depends on circumstance of what you have coming up. So how I would look at it is, if you're thinking of engaging in any kind of PR in the next 12 months, think about sort of 4 to 6 months in front of that about when you might engage someone like me. Because often when you have that initial conversation around it, it'll really help anchor, okay, well, we need these messages out there during this time frame in advance of launch of whatever it is. It's going to be of most valuable. Or if it really just is about, a book release, for example, obviously it's going to be anchored around that whenever that book's available. But it just totally depends on what you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not a question that I've got prepared for you. It's just coming to my mind right now. I can hear, we've had so many authors work with us and thought leaders, loads of thought leaders over the last number of years. And I can hear their voices in my head saying, what about the book I've written a year or two ago? I didn't come to you, Scott. I didn't get into the media. Mm-hmm. What do I do with books that or books that I've already written? Is there Is it too late? Have I missed the boat?
I would say no if the message is still relevant. I mean, there will be a slight difference in approach because you wouldn't market it as a new book release. But I find that the really valuable thing about having a book in general is that as long as it's topical and it ties into, whatever is happening in the media cycle or whatever it's, prolific amongst your clients, you can absolutely keep it going. Years even. It's just really about using that still as an engagement tool because it is a valuable one. It's a really easy sell if you're a communication specialist and you've written a book on effective communication in the workplace and you're pitching it to the AFR. Like, whilst it might not be anchored around the release, they can see that you're an authority on the subject through the book. So I send that to the journalist as a background and be more about you and your sort of business consulting as a sort of key positioning. Absolutely. Books, I mean, I have authors that have come to me, 18, 24 months after having a book release, and you can still find opportunities for them. It's just really then, I think, about probably moving away from the book itself and anchoring your messages around whatever it is that you market or sell or offer clients, because that's how that sort of strength in communication is really going to help drive leads. Because otherwise, if you're just poking any old topic out there, it's not going to be tailored enough to get interest in whatever it is that you're trying to put out there. So just think about it strategically in that, okay, well, the book's been out there. What do I have coming up in the next 3, 6, 12 months that ties into this? And how do we use the book as an engagement tool to get media coverage for the other stuff that's coming up for me too?
Yeah, no, fantastic. Because I can just see a question that Adrian's put into comments now about he released his book Teams That Swear just prior to COVID, late 19. Do you think it's too late to do PR to promote my message and the book? There you go, Adrian. I thought of that question way before you did. So absolutely not. Scott said if it's a relevant topic, which yours absolutely is, then it's not too late whatsoever. Okay, thank you.
And I've got to say too, since COVID, I would say there's never been more opportunity in the media for books that cover workplace topics and anything finance. Like, they're absolutely hot topics with everything that's going on. So you'll never find a shortage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fantastic. All right, next question is, what role do you feel publicity plays in proving credibility? Obviously a big one. Tell us all about this.
Look, I mean, I think it's huge because the majority of the media opportunities that I work with can't be paid for. You can't get in a financial review and have a profile and have an article there that you pay for unless it's, a big sign across it saying it's advertorial content and you pay your 5 or 10 grand for it. If you're on morning TV, you can't pay for the opportunity. If you're in, Harvard Business Review, you can't buy that. And credibility that offers when it's tied into your messaging is incredibly valuable because it's a point of difference from your competitors more than likely. And essentially, earned media coverage is the original influencer because, and I would still argue it's still much more valuable because anyone can go on Instagram and get a shot of someone hawking a product in front of something and they pay a fee for that and they get access to the followers. Sure, absolutely. And some demographics is absolutely a relevant part of PR and advertising. I think from an earned media perspective, there's huge value in it because particularly when you do sort of work in a publicity campaign, you get a whole package of coverage that you can use, whether it's printing out, including as part of workshops. You can put the logos on your website when you're engaging with prospective clients. You can tailor your topics if they tie into your speaking gigs. Like, there's just so much opportunity to do that and to build credibility. And I think, if someone was approaching me and they're a public speaker, for example, and they had a whole package of media coverage that I can see that the media believes their message is really relevant, I'd be much more inclined to hire that person than someone that didn't. And for me, it's sort of as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're speaking to the converted, I have to say. Cole, my husband and business partner at SalesSPACE, he was in TV for 21 years. So I worked at Southern Cross Stereo. So a huge fan of mainstream media. So he's in the background here today just going, yes, yes, and yes. He has told our clients for many, many years, mainstream media gives you massive credibility. So we totally agree with that. The same wavelength, definitely. Okay, so thank you for that. Next question is, how does publicity differ across the industries?
I don't think it really does, other than the approach might be a little bit different and obviously the kind of media that you're going after would be. I think it's just really about finding the right space for your work, because if you're working in HR, for example, then you might you might want to be target specific industries, or you might want to go broader. It just depends on who your target market is. I know that sounds like a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but that's just sort of what it comes down to, because the principles applied are the same. It's just you're attracting a different sort of audience. I do find though that when it is a B2B outreach, it's sort of much more they tend to be sort of much more advertorial driven sometimes, particularly when it's print, because that's how they get revenue to run these publications. But there's ways around that.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, excellent. I'm just thinking, I don't know if this question has come up. Just pop that one away for a second, Lauren. I think that my mind is, do I have to have a book? It's obviously really easy to promote yourself if you do have a book. It's much easier for you to get authors into mainstream media. But what happens for a business who doesn't or hasn't written a book yet, and they know their topic is so on point for mainstream media? Yeah,
so look, I mean, having a book you'll always get better coverage if you have something to anchor it around. So if you had a white paper or a book, it's that sort of sense of immediacy that you will get more cover. I work with, I have clients who I work with, for example, who is a uniform designer, and they've never had a book, and it's just all been about, okay, well, what are the sort of key media messages we want to get out there this year about our business, whether it's your business self, as sort of a growth or success story, or it's about engaging the kind of clients you're trying to grow in, whether it's industry specific. But you don't necessarily need it. It's just really about anchoring, rather understanding what sort of topics that tie into your offerings are going to be of most relevance to you and to media, and pushing them out there. So it's sort of the way that I would work on a book is similar in that, you look at the core topics of the book covers and how they tie into the client service offerings, and pushing those out in a media sense. So when you don't have that, it's just really about making sure that it's unique and interesting stuff, because you don't have that tangible object to make media engage with you faster. The only probably difference would be is that when you don't have a product or something that you're promoting, it tends to be just more of a slower burn, because there isn't that sense of immediacy of having a shiny new thing for media to engage with you about. But it doesn't detract from the media interest. It's just a different way of going about it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just looking at who's with us this morning, and I'm looking at Travis Green. So Travis is he's an IT expert, and I know that and a telecommunications expert. There's such a hot topic around cybersecurity, for instance. So if there's an expert out there who is probably never going to write a book, if I know Trav, there's no way he's going to be writing a book. But what he does is fill a huge, really hot topic right now, which is cybersecurity, for instance. Does that, if there's a super hot topic, even without a book, you said finance before, and I'll talk to you about hot topics in a moment. Does that make it easier for you if it's, even though they don't have a book, they've got a super hot topic?
Look, absolutely. And I think as long as you have your packaging, as I call it, ready, and that I mean, like your website's strong, you've got socials up, you might have some great photographs for media purposes. Essentially, once your marketing side of things sorted, because media look at that, like they'll absolutely Google you and see what your LinkedIn looks like, see whether you look yeah. And often if you don't have a book, then they don't sort of have that engagement tool. So they'll be looking for your other assets as a way to assess you. But yeah, absolutely. If that's your sort of market and that's your point of difference, then it's just about getting that out there. But what I would say is, even if you're sort of responding to hot topics in the media, because they're always out there, and you can always pivot message to tie into whatever's going on, still make sure that when you're out there and you're talking about these things, whether it's cyber security, for example, making sure that your message still ties into what it is that you are trying to sell or position yourself as, because you don't want them suddenly they just think you're a social media expert, which is different, but like media might sort of put you in that position. So it's just about making sure that
they put you in a pigeonhole. You think, gosh, no, I didn't mean to be in that pigeonhole. I'm not
exactly just that. Whether I would always do it, and this is also why I'm not a PR distribution service, because you can pass that out, and I'm sure you'll probably get some media interest, and some companies do that. Whereas to me, I think it's about offering the angle to media, positioning the expert in that angle, but then offering also media a sense of other things that they talk about Because I think that like if you give a more rounded view of about this person's value, that's how you create better ongoing relationships rather than someone who gets 20 seconds of airtime on free AW.
Yeah, you've covered some incredibly important points, Dan, and just to highlight how important having all your other assets in place. So making sure if you don't have a book, or even if you do have a book, your website has to be as good as it can get. You've got your LinkedIn profile really sharp and happening for you. You've got you might have a white paper, you might have your brochures are absolutely the most professional versions of your brochures you could do, and they really explain everything that you offer. So having all those in place is super, super important, and not just LinkedIn. There might be other social media platforms that are important to your type of business as well. So that was good. I'm going to talk to you about hot topics in a second, but Georgie has a question for you that I want to ask now. So Georgie says, can good news sell? I uplift government, but government is everyone's favourite punching bag. Could I get coverage?
Yes, but you probably need to find something really unique because it just doesn't get the same cut through as negative or controversial angles do. But yeah, look, everyone loves a good human interest news story. You've just got to find, the sort of right way to go about it. Often that can come through, case studies, for example. You just got to find the right angle in it, but it is definitely a tougher sell.
Yeah, I like that. And thank you, Georgie, for putting that up there. And I think that if anyone's going to find the right angle, Georgie will. She's very good and a fantastic writer as well. So good work. All right, next question for you is, what are the 3 biggest mistakes you feel are made that can cost credibility in mainstream media?
The first one that comes to mind would be that when some people will go after any media opportunity. I always think that's a bit of a risky game when it isn't like a valuable outlet. Like, look, if you got offered a game in like a morning TV slot that wasn't quite your angle, but it was close enough, I'd say if you don't have a profile, it's worth it. If it's going, like, if you're a management expert and you're going on there to talk about, parenting tips, I would just say that that's probably not a worthwhile opportunity because it doesn't add any value to you. And I think that some people fall into the trap of working with agencies or whatever that just get them any PR opportunity, whether, just for the sake of placement. I just think that that's dangerous because it doesn't give media an understanding about your value. And to me, I think that's a really important part. And like, I have that happen all the time. I literally had a journalist call me yesterday who was laughing because a pitch I sent to him 4.5 years ago, he just got commissioned and he thought that was hilarious. And he even asked me, is that typical? I was like, no, that's ridiculous. He said, he always keeps my pitches because they're always really targeted to sort of the clients that he works with. And so I think, just having really good understanding about that positioning is really important too. And then kind of what we've covered already in terms of a mistake would be just that, if you don't have a good website or if your website has a logo on the bottom saying copyright, 2019, look for stuff like that because I know it's a small detail, but media just think it looks sloppy. So I would definitely just make sure everything's up to date and really represents you, and that's through visuals too. So if you're doing photographs, you don't need to go and get spend 5 to 10 grand every single time on a great suite of photographs if you don't have those resources. It's about having some nice quality shots of you that look like a media outlet shot them because they'll just give a space if you do, and so many people don't invest in that, and I think it's such a service if they're going to invest in the publicity side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing would be not being responsive. As I said, I feel like my role as a sort of connector, if you like, is really just to make the relationship between the client and the journalist seamless so that when they go, hey, I do need a people management expert, let's go back to blah because they were brilliant last time that I dealt with them. If you aren't responsive and if you make my job difficult by not being responsive, it doesn't help a relationship. And to me, I think part of the value that I always try and achieve to any client that I work with is that when we stop our work together, that media will keep coming back to you. And the only way that you can help your side of things with that is just by being a good communicator as well. And it does work both ways. And I tell you what, when I don't have to chase clients for stuff, it is brilliant because I spend a lot of time with media follow-up. So not doing that on the client end always scores points with me.
That's good. Fantastic. Okay. So next question is, you specialize in building business profiles. How do you promote your own business? Well, we've sort of already covered that, haven't we? You've got some very, very good strategic relationships, I think, and people just send people, so many clients to you. Is there any other way that you promote your business that are in mainstream media at all?
Look, I mean, I don't now. I guess I probably reached a transition period with my business about 5 or 6 years ago where it did become a lot more referral based than what it was. But like when I started out, I hustled like everyone did. Like I was out there contacting hundreds of companies and publishers every single week, and I had a really big sort of as a follow-up strategy with coming back to people. And whenever I tried to approach different industries, I'd look for different ways to get paid. Like one of my clients was Duncan, who's a photographer, so I worked for photographs. I wanted to try my reach into product PR, so I worked for a whiskey distillery, and you can only guess what I got paid with the first job I did with them. So I've always had a good hustle for the background, but then I think just after years of doing good work by people, it's just more about now just working with people that I've worked with previously and their networks. And I find that I really enjoy sort of clients I get to work with now because often they have either worked with me previously or someone in the network has. They've kind of got a similar philosophy in terms of hard work ethic and being themselves out there and being proactive. And I really enjoy that because I identify those sorts of traits with how I operate my own business. Look, certainly to me, it's just about capacity and making sure that I can work with the right people at the right time. And I work with everyone, but hopefully the majority of people that I get to work with enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll have to get through these last few questions relatively quickly because we're running out of time. We could talk for ages. You've got so much great information for us. What markers need to be hit for you to consider a mainstream media campaign to be successful?
So it's different with each way that I work with the client. So if I'm working with a traditional publisher and it's all about book release, and typically, so sort of first 6 months sales that are most critical because the publicity is driving that awareness, that's driving the retail sell-through. If you're a self-published author, it's probably more about what the value of the media relationships created are and how you're sort of using that in your own business development to secure leads. And then for businesses, this is really about furthering that awareness of your service offerings, link backs, lead generation, these sorts of things. What I sort of do on my own in internal basis is I kind of have like my own sort of benchmarking guide about, in terms of media coverage specifically, about sort of the value of those outlets and what comparable books have achieved or projects have achieved previously, and I sort of benchmark it on there. So if I see that something hasn't gone as well as a previous subject matter, it gives me scope to really understand how and why that was and what we can look at doing to try and rectify that before the campaign's over.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Good points. And next question is, what is the essential information that should be provided to ensure successful media coverage? What do we need to provide?
Yeah. So when I start working with a client, it's usually the client will draft a sort of a list of core topics that tie into what the service offerings are. Generally, then we'll sort of workshop them into angles or positioning that sort of finds a mutual ground between their sort of service offerings, but also making them work on an editorial sense. I would say looking at providing trends that you're seeing with clients that you're working with or in your industry or that you're just noticing in the media. Because I guess the thing to remember is like, whilst, yes, I've got great relationships and I can help elevate your message, you are the expert. So you've got to sort of teach me about what you're seeing too. Quality photographs. Can't underestimate at all how important that is, because you just, like if someone sends me like a 1980s style smiling headshot, it's, I can use that in a very small context, but typically when it's any kind of media outlets, they're not going to run it. So having good quality shots. And then, as we said previously, having your socials and your website up to date, concise, everyone good understanding about what your value is, because essentially if someone's going to read about you and click to your website, what do you want them to do? And your website's going to help you answer that.
Yeah, fantastic. So for all the photographers we know out there, so we've got a lot in our network as well that have worked with us over the years, and I'm sure you know some great photographers as well. We're giving them a good push this morning because it is so true. You have to have great images, and that's something that's loud and clear in our interview. Okay, so what are the scary trends going on in the industry that we should be aware of?
The biggest one that comes to mind, and we touched on this last week, was just there's publications that essentially give you fake publicity opportunities. So you might be approached cold email from someone who says, we're collating a list of the top 10 leadership experts in 2022. And you go, great. And they go, yes, so that'll be a $5,000 investment on your behalf. And you go, okay, well, maybe that's worth it, maybe not. People sign up for them. And to me, there's just no value in it because it's a paid for opportunity, usually with a publication that doesn't have any editorial value. It's just someone's created it to these programs. And to me, if you're going to spend that sort of money, spend it on some PR, spend it on some social media, spend it on your website back up to scratch, because all those things be much more valuable than what paid for media opportunities are. So I'd say that's the biggest thing, because it's targeting people that might not necessarily know that it's not the norm to pay for those opportunities. And I just don't personally see the value in it. Like, I had a client recently who was on the AFR rich list. Now, you can't pay to be on that. You've got to have the wealth. So, I always look for earned opportunities that you can look for based upon that, rather than anything you'd ever looking at paying for.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really important tip. Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. And very important for us, obviously. Do you teach your clients how to maximize their sales from each of their different media campaigns? Because this is absolutely our forte. So it's something I'm keen to hear from you.
Look, I mean, I don't in terms of the sales outreach. What I tend to do with clients is that once we start getting the media traction happening, I've got a little guide that I've compiled about sort of leveraging off of the media opportunities and how you can use them. Because I think some people assume that, once your radio interview's done or that you've had an article out there, you might put it on your socials once and then forget about it. As we know, there's a bunch of ways you can use that years to come, essentially, as long as it's relevant. So I think this is sort of the nice sort of segue point between my work and what SalesSPACE does, because we can get the great coverage when it's about handing over and to understand then how that can create sales opportunities moving forward, which would be much more your area than mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fantastic. So I think that's it for our questions. I just we've got a few people saying thank you so much, Scott, because you have just given us so much great information, which I love. Yes, just pop that's up. That's good. So yes, what I would love to do is quickly show a couple of videos now of some of your clients in media. So I'd love to share now. Let's have a look at just a snapshot. You've got this one here. Let me press this button here and show client on today.
Welcome back. Striking a balance between work and personal life is a never-ending struggle. We're all feeling it, which is why more and more of us are seeking flexible working arrangements, including part-time roles.
Our next guest says it's time to challenge the assumption that more hours equals more impact. And author and executive coach Belinda Morgan joins us now. Belinda, good morning to you.
Hey, Belinda.
Hi, Phil.
You say that part-time employment has an image problem. Explain that for us.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, actually, because a lot of it comes down to misconceptions. So many of us tend to assume that people who work part-time also part-committed, that they somehow care about their jobs and their careers less than their full-time peers, which is absolutely not true.
Okay, so that's an awesome one. I'd love to watch that whole thing, but let's have a look at the next one now. So we've got that's Belinda, who did a great job. Then we've got Michelle, and Michelle has worked with us at SalesSPACE. So let's have a look at Michelle here. On the morning show.
Thanks, guys.
Well, with many families feeling the pinch from the rising cost of living, people are looking for different ways to make extra money, right?
Now, research shows that almost half of Australians have picked up a little side hustle, or at least are looking for one, and more than 800,000 people are currently working more than one job. So how easy is it to turn your hobby into a lucrative cash cow?
I'm guessing it might not be as easy as we see, or as it might appear. I don't know. Let's find out from workplace expert Michelle Gibbings, who's got some tips for us. Welcome to the show. What are the most common ways that people are trying to make extra money on the side?
I put it into 5 key categories. There are people who outsource their skills. It might be proofreading, writing, video editing. Then there's people who are leveraging
because we'll run out of time, but just fantastic for both Michelle and for Belinda. Amazing PR. And then if I show you this quickly now, we've got here another. So Michelle in the print media as well, and also here. We've got Donna McGeorge, who has been a fantastic client of SalesSPACE for a while, Scott Stein down there as well, and also Victoria Mills. So you've got a group of them here doing the masterclass, which is fantastic. What can you remember what magazine this was in, Scott?
It's Financial Review's Boss magazine.
Yeah, incredible. All right, so what I would now like to show is just a quick snapshot of how all this works together with our SalesSPACE book optimization model. So when you've got a book out there, if you're an author and you're keen to work with Scott, let me put myself over here for a second. So you've got your book here, then you've got your targeting. You've got to make sure you're really clear on who your audience is. You've got to make sure you've got your sales messaging, so your sound bites, those short, sharp bumper sticker statements that really highlight what you do, and you can say it in a nutshell. You have your products and your models all in place, so you're really easy to buy from, and people know what to buy from you when they've read your book or seen you in media. You've got your sales system and your sales collateral. As Scott said, it's so important to make sure you've got your brochures, your videos, your presentations, and then also you need a sales system to make sure you optimize any of the media that you get. Of course, under my head right here, if I put myself down here, you need a strategy. So if you are actually doing any media whatsoever, of course you need a strategy to optimize your sales. Scott also said to us, we need to have your website, make sure it is up to date, it's ready to capture leads, and obviously do book sales if you've got a book, and also have that website audited so that it's SEO and keywords optimized. Then a landing page, nurture campaign, and as you can see here, a marketing strategy and a content promotion strategy, which all then leads into a sales-specific CRM. So this is the way we work at SalesSPACE to make sure you've got the complete package. If you are an author, or even if you are working with Scott and you have got your message, so you might not have a book, you might have a white paper, you've got a really strong opinion about a hot topic, and you've got that out into the marketplace. You want to make sure you've got all of these pieces in place to absolutely optimize all of your efforts. And this is where we see Scott right here. So super importantly, very key person in your marketing strategy, in your content promotion strategy. Do you feel like we've got that right, Scott? This is sort of where you sit really quite firmly. And as you can see, yeah, viewers, there's a whole lot of other things that you need to get in place so that any work you do in the mainstream media is 100% optimized from a sales perspective as well. So I just wanted to show everybody that. And if you are listening today and you want a copy of that model, I'm super happy to forward it to you. Just pop it into the comments and let us know if you would like any copy of anything we've shown today. So Scott, we're just a couple of minutes over. We better wrap this up because it has been incredible speaking to you, and you just offered us so much this morning in our interview. And I want to thank you enormously for your time today and your incredible insights into mainstream media. And I can't wait for you to be doing exactly that for SalesSPACE whenever we can get ourselves organized. The book has been coming for a long time. In fact, I'm thinking, my gosh, maybe I'll just go out there without a book and just get a hot topic and come to you with that instead. But thank you very much. And it's been wonderful having you here. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us today. And if you weren't able to join us today, we will send you the recording live if you have already registered. So thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks again.
Bye.